What were some of the price points you guys were hitting at on your acquisitions?
Like how much to buy the property?
Yeah, like down payment or what type of loans were you getting?
As for I guess one of my deals I was doing, it was they wanted to buy the house. It was 45K down or 45K to buy the property, and then because I was using a conventional investment loan, I could get it for they probably would ask about 15 to 20% down on top of that. And the cool thing too with that is that because I was using like a smaller bank, they could I could basically work with them to get a rehab budget included in that 15%, 20% down. So then I can project how much I have to obviously have to work with the contractors to project how much each thing is going to cost, have a scope of work and a game plan. But that would let me put really less money down on the deal because I have my budget of rehab already allocated in there. Then I can go to my Excel file and predict how much money I expect to make off of this deal. So once you start working too, like with the contractors, like you kind of already know an assessment of how much they cost for things. And that doing that exercise of crunching the numbers and looking at houses, you can just look at the price and look at the condition and say, oh yeah, this is going to cost me 30K rehab right off the bat. You look at the selling price and you just know already if it's a good deal.
Did you have to manage those?
The rehab process?
Yeah, the rehabs.
I mean, yeah, I would manage the rehab and I would check up on them to make sure they're actually getting the work done. And then if you have a bank that will pay you to pay the contractor out for the rehab, you would just write like a check for each project they get done. So they would cough up the change up front. They would send you a bill. You'd say, okay, let me go check on your work. Talk to the banks. They write a check to the contractor, and that would keep. It was cool because the bank was a middleman, so you wouldn't lose money if they ran away. They wouldn't get paid, and you didn't give them money up front. That was a good way. Actually, in my first personal deal, I gave the investor like 50% of the rehab money up front with my own cash, and I was like, man, I learned that was pretty risky because he could have just left.
Right.
There would have been a lot of cash that a newbie would have lost. And oh man.
And how far from the project were you on that one too? Because obviously,
yeah.
if you have management, you have to be aware of your time and then also distance.
Yeah, that was about an hour away. So that's
wow. Okay.
That's rough.
You have to account for it. So like if you want to go see it, if your job lets you leave during the day to go there, then you gotta plan ahead to do those trips. I mean, obviously, if you can find a deal that's closer, I'd recommend that because it is a headache to like plan your Friday or weekend off to go drive to your property, and it's like 1 hour one way to see it for 10 minutes and then drive back. So you gotta try to make it worth your time.
So, that definitely makes sense.
But sometimes that's the price you got to pay. Like if it was that good of a deal, it's probably worth it. Probably worth it to do it. On finances, John, I've done a couple things. I did when I had a duplex. It was up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but that was the duplex that we owner occupied. So we did an FHA mortgage, 3.5% down on like $175,000 purchase price. So not that much money. It was in decent shape, so I just had to do some minor rehabs myself, and I could move a tenant in. So that was a pretty sweet one. On another one I did down in Kansas City, I got a wholesaler, and this was back when wholesale deals were actually deals as opposed to
scams.
I don't know. You said it. I didn't say it. But anyway, so I bought it for like 21 grand, and I put another $20,000 into it through a general contractor. At the end of the process, it was probably worth like 70. So I was able to just do a cash out refi I used a hard money loan. No, actually, I think I might have bought it with my own cash. Bought it with my own cash, put the money into it, then just did a cash out refi. So at the end, I didn't have any money in it, and it cash flowed great. So a couple different options there.
Okay, interesting. And it'll be interesting to hear how you guys manage those after. So for mine, most of those were acquired, with a partner, and then we got personal loans. Obviously, you have the ability to do the owner occupy, where it's a little bit cheaper versus an investor type loan, being the conventional type. It's a little bit more. So that kind of goes hand in hand with the owner occupied. But yeah, it is definitely lower entry to barrier on the finance side. On the commercial, I think that's one of the considerable barriers, obviously, because you have to have substantial amount. Um, Commercial size loans usually range from the ones we're dealing with now, anywhere from 2 to 6.
That's
Minimum,
million.
yeah, million, 2 to 6 million, and then while you can get a waiver for the to get it down to 750 for agency debt, Fannie Freddie, they like to see usually $1 million loan balance. So you definitely have to have substantial amount, and obviously that's where the partners come in, try to help you finance that deal. But you do get a bunch of benefits, obviously, with that.
Yeah, John, I got to jump in there. You talk about partners, you talk about commercial loans, and as we're kind of on the topic of down payments too.
Sure.
I'm sure you guys have done down payments, 10, 15, 25% down on a single family for your investment properties, which is a chunk of change. Like, let's be honest, that's a chunk of change. Even if your investment property is a $50,000, $60,000 property, that's, a lot of money to just write a check for. But like with this deal we're working on right now in Oklahoma City, like we're going to be in it for 100, 150 grand 2 weeks after signing the contract. And that's not even the down payment. That's just like the deposit and stuff. So you talk about partners, like you or your partners need to have some fairly deep pockets for those kind of things.
Yeah, it's definitely to pay to play, and the EMD with these guys, substantial amount. I mean, it could range from anywhere for 50 to couple 100,000, depending on the size of the deal. A lot of these larger brokers like CBRE, Berkadia, whatnot, Marcus Millichap, they definitely don't like to play around. They want to make sure the buyer can close, has a lot of experience, and they're going to go with the buyer that can close versus someone who just throws out a high number, because in this day and age, there's a lot of people kicking the tires, and they definitely don't want to waste the seller's time. So they're going to really do their due diligence on the buying team. But there's always upsides and downsides for these barriers. Obviously, having a big barrier, that means you're going to get benefits all the way, and if you have a lower barrier, you might not get as many benefits, but it's going to be easier to get in a deal.
Yeah.
So I guess looking on our topics here, we can go into a few more. You guys can run through these real quick. We can just do this next section, since we're talking about renovations. Obviously, the renovations are going to be on a much smaller scale on the single family side. What say you on those versus renovations on the commercial side, which I can touch upon?
Like a high level update on what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I'll know what they're doing, because when I had it set up where the bank, they would contact me, I would have to contact the bank, make sure they got their work done, then send the check out. So they always had to reach out to me to get paid out anyways. So it forced them to contact me to give them their money. So that was a pretty good setup. So they wouldn't just kind of just do their thing on their own, and I wouldn't know what's going on. But on top of that, I would also ask for, if I couldn't make it out, I would ask for pictures, or I would try to come on the weekend and just get access to the house to actually view the work that's being done. So anytime it was a big check, I'd say, hey, hold on, I'll be out, next week, following week, whatever, and then I'll verify the work, and then we'll get you guys paid out for that rehab project. But yeah, it takes a lot of work in just like communicating that what is going to be done. But again, your scope of work should really have it lined out on what you're planning to do, and it should have a timeline of how long you expect the rehab to take. And I think too, at least from my experience, that you should already set a negotiation on when you think things will be done and exactly what you expect to be done. So you're not just guessing in the moment and then that's costing into your basically your rehab cost time. Then that could have been money that you could have been renting out the property, and that opportunity cost is lost because you're still paying for the mortgage. You might be paying for energy bills.
So
That
so
goes into
pro
it.
pro tip, contractors don't always do what they say. It's a little bit slower than what they say. You always have to do a punch list.
Sure.
So
I would recommend too, like at least life or business in general, like you should try to make it and like because you obviously you can make it where it's a negative hit, they don't meet their timeline, you don't pay them as much or whatever. But I think that can kill the relationship, and if they're doing good work but they're just not good at communicating, that can kill potential opportunity. So I think at least for the growth mindset process, I would recommend trying to make it a win-win in a positive environment where perhaps you already negotiate that price down from the start, and then you say, hey, if you get this work done on time or early, I'll pay you 1,000 on top of it. So that gives them that positive motivation to get the work done on time and do good work. And you already crunched the numbers, so you know what the budget was for yourself. And they're already thinking, oh, cool, I make an extra 1K or 5K, whatever it is, just for getting good work done on time. And I think that'll help your relationship along the way because you'll continuously do deals and they'll be happy to work with you and probably won't even ghost you. So
I mean, don't get me wrong, you get what you pay for, but there's always, that happy medium. You can't always be paying for the best contractors money could buy because obviously it'd be real tough making any money. Plus, you might not need that level of rehab for the class of tenant or the demographics tenant you're looking for. So there's always a middle ground. Obviously, the less you pay, the more you'll probably have to manage, oversight, trust but verify type thing. That's been my experience. I really like to stick to a couple contractors, especially ones that could do a lot of things versus calling multiple contractors that only do one thing. Because after the years, they kind of get an idea of a level of expectation of how you want your unit completed, the efficiency you want it done, your payment schedule, things like that. So, but overall, the will to move over to the commercial side where the property management more has to deal with the contractors, or they can get work bulk because everything's similar, is one of the big reasons why I would definitely like to experience that side versus the other side where I had to be the general contractor, because it is a huge time sink. And if they're good enough, they're going to be that much more difficult to schedule into the future, or their prices continue to go up. So contractors can make or break you. That's for sure. And they have for a lot of investors.
Yeah.
You have at least 3 quotes on any major rehabs that you want to do, and timelines, of course.
And nowadays they're all high, so it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as the commercial side, I would say the benefits there are you can provide them a little bit more volume. Obviously, in our instance, you could do anywhere from 10 to 5 to 10 renovations a month. So you can promise them, hey, you'll have this many units to 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms to paint or do flooring on, to paint the cabinets, change out vanities, fixtures, electrical, things like that. So they can give you a little bit more volume pricing. And then, of course, the property manager makes it a little bit more stringent too. So they'll have to carry insurance, things like that, and that makes the contractors a little bit more legit.
Yep.
And it's a little bit different level because they know they will be able to come back for more volume work that's steady and longer into the year versus, let's say, do one job where the investor might not come up with another property until they find another deal. So that's comparison on the side of having experience on both the smaller scale single family or residential multifamily versus commercial side. Was there anything else you guys wanted to add on the renovations topic? I know we touched a little bit about it before.
No, I think that hits it pretty well.